have an opportunity of 2025 with the Finance Minister, so I'll recognize people. Yes, there's a eager person right there. I think the normal rule is to identify mobile mics. One over there. Are there mobile mics? Must be.
Mr. Chidamaram, I was really impressed by...
Could you identify yourself?
Is it better? I'll introduce myself, of course. My name is educator, both nationally and internationally. So I was really impressed by your speech and not the road you're paving for India economically. Now my concern is precisely one, in the field to allocate funds and the governments, state governments to get those funds, but what we are really noticing is that there's very little democracy in education. And by this I mean that the parents and the children who are really the recipients of education are behind. The policy is made by administrators, and this policy is outdated. So our children and our parents have to resort to tutors, have to resort to competition, and many of those who go abroad to study, many of them are doing that, and want to return back to India to help India. Many of my own son has done it. So what is there for them? Like if they want to clean up India, they're doing some stuff. Is the government really based on projects, or do they have to really come back to India, do it labor of love? And a big question, the money that's being put aside
could I request you to abbreviate, please? Because
yeah, brief question, need more democracy in education, and how can we really put it together? Thank you.
I think the Indian education system is democratic. We have schools with one classroom, maybe not even that, teaching 5 classes. We have schools which charge 100,000 rupees as fees. So I think system you're talking about, the vast majority of Indian children go to government schools. And the government's concern, the state's concern, must be to improve the quality of those schools. Children are enrolled, children remain in school for 5, 8, 10 years, and the quality improves. That's a huge task. Therefore, the state's funds are indeed directed, and that represents about 80-85% of children go to those schools in municipalities, in villages, for the well-to-do, there are any number of schools. We have got a dozen school systems in this country. CBSE, ICSE, Anglo-Indian, all kinds of systems. And they are providing education which is equal to perhaps the best education you can get anywhere else in the world. The state's funds are available only today. The state's funds are available only to schools which are under the government system, where over 85% of the effort is to ensure that every child is enrolled, every child remains in school for at least 10 years, and that the quality improves.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mr. Chidamaram, your contributions to the economic and financial health of this country by so many people that I would be only contributing to the chorus. The specific question which I wish to raise with you is to the point you made about the progressive tendency on part of the states to abdicate their responsibilities to the center. It would be a different expectation of some people like us to believe that you would use your central position in the government to create true fiscal and monetary federalism in this country. Do you have any ideas which you would like to share with us in this direction?
Well, we discovered, as I said in my budget speech, there are 1,000 programs which are funded by the government of India. It came as a big revelation. We are now putting in place a central schemes monitoring system simply to track the money that we spend on these 1,000 schemes. In the first place, we should converge many of them and hand them over to the state governments. Thanks to the Rangarajan, some measure of fiscal discipline has been imposed upon the state governments. Many of them have willingly accepted it because if they reach those fiscal targets, they get debt forgiveness. And we have forgiven a large amount of debt belonging to the. But beyond that, the last Finance Commission also tried to reward 6 or 7 states in some specific areas. I'll give you more money for education if you carry out these reforms. Now that has worked in those states. The Urban Renewal Mission, we give money for urban infrastructure only if they do certain Urban Feeling Act, which Mumbai has reluctantly done finally. So we are using instruments to incentivize and disincentivize states so that they come to the track of fiscal prudence and take. But all said and done, they are very happy to give the bulk of the responsibility to the central governments, a central government, so that their financial responsibilities are limited. Said about 10,000 crore in 2008-9, and I've said states which perform well will get more money. The new scheme that comes up before the cabinet of the government of India, I find, is a scheme where the state says funding. In the case of northeastern states, it is 90% of the funding. States are still, they think that the center has an unending source of funds. And it's a tussle, it's a battle which we have not been able to win so far.
Arun, I believe you wanted to come in. I guess you don't have to identify yourself.
I will. Both of you have defined the fundamental problem, I believe, of the economy, which is that you have agriculture share is 15 or 16%, and you have 60% of people employed there or dependent on agricultural income. And how do you get them into manufacturing? I think this is, to me, the most fundamental problem of the Indian economy, is to try and get jobs, and the only way you can get jobs is to move them away. The Minister said that, oh look, we cannot do much about manufacturing because of capital productivity. And let's look at mining and services and so forth. I think it's, I think you're running away from the fund. Have to somehow encourage manufacturing, look at redefining your labor laws, how they actually make people productive in manufacturing, because that's your only hope, I think. If you think that services are going to grow even more, I think that would be the wrong way to go. You have to set up training institutes, you have to take people off the land and put them into manufacturing, into productive work. Am I wrong, or is you've given the fight up for manufacturing?
No, I did not say we should not encourage manufacturing. All I manufacturing job growth to correspond to manufacturing growth. Manufacturing has been growing over the last few years, but the number of jobs in the manufacturing sector are not growing at all, the numbers given by Shankar. So while manufacturing must grow, it's wrong to expect that jobs will grow in manufacturing sector correspondingly. The question was about job growth. Yeah. Therefore, the reality check is, while manufacturing will grow, even if it grows at 10%, the number of jobs in manufacturing will not grow by 10% because of labor productivity, and technology. I mean, that's the reality check. Some jobs will come in manufacturing, but you can't expect jobs to be created in manufacturing. There's a greater opportunity for more jobs to be created, and that is how jobs are created in India today, in the services sector, in transportation, in tourism, in retail, in wholesale. This is where the jobs will be created. There's no contradiction in what I say. We must adopt policies to grow at 9 to 10%. We must also encourage sectors which are more job creating. The hypothesis that I put forward is, Mr. Shankar to confirm or deny, is that the job creating manufacturing, the job creating sector appear to be some other sectors. Therefore, if you're looking at jobs, help the other sectors grow. It doesn't mean that manufacturing should not grow. Obviously, manufacturing should grow. We must produce more steel, we must produce more automobiles, we must produce more textiles, we must produce more clothing, we must produce more shoes. Manufacturing must grow, but don't expect job growth there. That's the point I was making.
So may I pursue that Arun's question a little bit, and also your invitation, which sharpen it just for purpose of debate. Why is it that when one looks at India and then looks across the northern border at China, and I'm talking about the last 10, 15 years, let alone the earlier kind of years when manufacturing was beaten down by we have so many successful companies, but when you look at our successful companies, very few, if really made their success in, say, labor-intensive textiles, big textile factories, in the same way that happened. And I guess this comes around to the question of, is there anything more we can do on labor laws? I also mentioned labor laws, but there are perhaps other factors that come to your mind, policy-wise, so that manufacturing, whether it's 8%, 10%, 7%, that the kind of employment oomph could be more.
See, China's manufacturing not only the factory for the whole world, and therefore they have designated areas, labor policies, they've designed their wage policies in a manner that Chinese labor will produce goods for the rest of the world. Now China has the advantage because of its system of government to do that. Can we do that in India? Labor laws for certain parts of India? Answer is no. Can we have different wage laws designated enclaves in India? The answer is no. So I think the comparison with China is very attractive. Right. If the world stops buying Chinese goods, Chinese manufacturing will suffer the same fate as Indian manufacturing. While the manufacturing sector will grow at a sedate pace, it will not throw up jobs. And China, as I understand it, anyone can go and negotiate with the provincial governor and say, I will set up this factory to ensure that 1,000 people are available to me to work in my factory. We will now negotiate what is the 1,000 workers. And I will produce the goods and I will export and I will pay you a certain share of taxes. Negotiated wage, labor, taxation policy is not possible in India. The manufacturing factory of the world, where India could become, thanks to the fact that we don't control these areas much, service provider to the world. And if you're looking for jobs, and unless I'm hopelessly wrong, jobs in India will come in the services sector and will come in sectors which are still close to the private sector. Transportation. These are the sectors where the jobs will come. Manufacturing will grow. Jobs. But I do not, and unless I'm proved wrong, I do not see a large number of jobs.
A lady there, yes?
There was a point of time when a 25,000 spindle textile, 3 shifts a day, required about 600 employees. Today, at 25,000 spin ships a day, I'm told, can be run with 200 workers. Thanks to technology, the doffer move on foot, and when that breaks, he has to doff it. He would look at 4 sides of a machine, each 440 spindles. If the bottom 40 is yarn, 60 is yarn, you could do 6. Today the doffer is usually a young girl who moves and is able to do 20 sides.
Yes.
Yeah, hi, I'm Koyal Puri. Leadership. Yesterday we had a talk from, I think her name was Dana Zohar, who talked about the prerequisite was the recognition of your calling. And I wanted to know, when you were in Harvard and a sense of a greater calling that you would govern the nation, that you would be involved in politics, stumble on it, do people, I want to know what makes that switch in someone's brain that I'm going to lead as opposed to
madness. They tried to make a capitalist out of me in Harvard. I returned to practice law and work in the trade union movement. Discovered that while socialist objectives are good, the socialist method is not so good.
My name is Dilip Cherian and I work for Perfect Relations. You used very heartening words like governance and the need for policy to be directed towards that. I'm not sure whether I'm another front, which is 2 major initiatives which you've taken in recent times. One is, of course, very laudable, the write-off of farmers' loans, and the other, equally laudable, controlling the banks from recovering their loans. But both move to a twisting of a psychology of people believing that there is this great white government and can expect not to repay your loans. Does this warp the money, that money the most, and will therefore our system over a period of time not lend them money?
That's a very, if I may say with respect, Dilip, a very cynical view about it. Farmers are honest people. Most farmers repay their loans year round. There's a very good credit culture among farmers. But farming is perhaps the most precarious economic activity in the country. Less than 1/2 of the land is irrigated. The other half depends on monsoon. And we do not offer them world prices. Farmers' prices because we have to ensure that food is available to consumers. Debt builds up. When debt builds up, the farmer is denied. What does he do? He has to till the same land next year. That's the only thing he knows. So large number of people are getting out of the institutional credit system and falling into the becomes obliged to the money lender. He can never get out of that system. I'll give you an example. Told has set up a debt relief commission and has invited applications from farmers. 140,000 applications, according to a report that I have received, has come from the district of Wayanad, most affected districts where a large number of suicides have taken place among farmers. I'm told that that's an exaggeration, not more than a handful. Out of 140,000 applications, not more than a handful seek debt relief from a money lender. They're all applications seeking debt relief from the bank. Indebted to a money lender are unwilling even to apply for debt relief to a debt relief commission. Debt forgiveness in that manner. India has forgiven Africa's debt. We have a large number of companies in India under what is euphemistically called not loan waiver but restructuring, CDR. What is it except loan waiver? A very wise man called C. Rajagopalachari, fondly known as Rajaji, passed the Draft Agriculturist Debt Relief Act, where he said that if anyone is paid back twice the amount or interest or both, the debt is wiped out. 1938 law. For debt forgiveness, and what we have done in the last few days is not anything unique. This has happened in every country. We find that, given the level of suicides among farmers, given the fact that many are likely to the money lending system, we find that there is a compelling argument for one-time debt forgiveness, which we have done. And I make no apologies for that. I think this is a correct decision. As the Prime Minister said, this is an orthodox response to a very serious and burning problem. But I believe that once the slate is wiped clean, access credit from banks and resume farming and perhaps continue to do farming and be an honorable man as he always was.
I believe we have time for one last question. I'm afraid I recognize the gentleman over there.
Mr. Finance Minister, it was very heartening to hear you say that in the 5th year of your term you 0.8%. But as we read in the papers the other day, the manufacturing itself seems to have come down to around 5. What's happening in the global slowdown and including its impact on India in the services, is this target of yours of 8.8%? And the second is that we saw that even the capital, the reasons is that the very high rates of interest. So do you see to again kickstart some more investment that is needed?
Policy interest rates are determined. And the main purpose of interest rate is to contain inflation. Please remember that India is isolated from rising commodity prices and rising food prices in the world. I can give you figures, very disturbing figures in terms of price. Oil in 2004 was $37 a barrel. Was $65 a barrel. February 2008, $93 a barrel. Palm oil, an edible oil that India imports, our government came into office, was $471 a metric ton. It was $710 a metric ton. In February 2008, $1,177 a metric ton. And yesterday it was $1,270 a metric ton. Rice, which we do not import, but that is an indicator of food prices, $5 a metric ton. April 2004. April 2009, $95 a metric ton. January, $364 a metric ton. Metric ton. See, we're not insulated from international commodity or food prices, steel, tin, etc. So as long as there is a threat of inflation, the bank to use policy interest rates in order to contain inflation expectations. And as far as slowdown is concerned, we recognize that there is a slowdown thanks to US recession, say, I wish not, and a slowdown in Europe. We have anticipated the slowdown and we've applied, I'm sure affirm it, textbook economics. We have done all three things which the textbooks say should be done. More money in taxpayers' pockets, at least 45,000 in Suketu's pocket. Cut customs duties and excise duties to stimulate consumption and demand. Laid larger amounts of money for public expenditure. The textbook says to stimulate you should do. Put more money in people's pocket, cut taxes, spend more. I've done all three. It works.
There are a lot more questions.
All right.
You
Take
want to
that,
take one
take that young man. Because he's a young man,
Okay,
I think you
you're-
should give him a chance.
but you're
No,
supposed
right
to-
there, right in front.
Okay, right in front. Okay. I think you have the advantage of youth, so FM has recognized you.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Just representing the younger generation of India, I had a very... during your speech, you mentioned that it is a moral responsibility of the citizens of India, of the people of India to elect government. Now, sir, my question to you is, knowing that the significant amount of population of India, which is, say, between the age of 25 to 30 or 35, most of these people are politically uninformed, do not have interest in politics rather. Now, how can we handle this sort of a situation to the right sort of government goes into place and then it ensures the growth and so on and so forth and all the...
You're surprised. Thanks to television and thanks to language newspapers, awareness in rural India. I represent a rural constituency. There are 3,000 villages in my constituency. And young men and women, thanks to television and to language newspapers, political awareness than you and I might be willing to concede. The point is that political awareness been capitalized by the right political parties which have a right political message, political agenda. That political awareness is now exploited largely by caste-based parties. And many of them, at least the initial expression of political awareness, turns out to be voting in favor of the party that they think will advance caste interest. That's the sad story in India. Once they get over voting as belonging to a caste, I think you will find that they will vote for better governors and better. At the moment they are aware, but they are channelizing their energy to voting for a political party which they think better represents their caste.